All right, here we go. How you doing, everyone? This is Frantz Derenoncourt Jr. I am a real estate professional in the DMV area. That's DC, Maryland, and Virginia. I've been in the real estate industry for 20 years. So I've been around the block a few times, sold a lot of real estate, bought a lot of real estate, helped people buy a lot of real estate, helped a lot of people invest in real estate. So real estate has been good to me over the past 20 years. So now I'm just doing these webinars to kind of help my clients and customers, friends and family understand the selling process this time. So a couple of weeks ago, I did one of these webinars for first-time home buyers. So I want to keep it going and educate people that are looking to put their homes on the market and sell their properties. And so let's just jump right into it. So I pretty much broke down this thing in about 10 steps. Very simple. This is not going to be a long video, but I just want to share a few tips on what to expect when you're about to put your home on the market, right? So right now, today's date is what is July 15th, 2020. So the market, we're right in the middle of a pandemic right now, and actually, the market is not that bad. At least not here, not bad here in the DMV area. Partly due to the historically low interest rates. People are taking advantage. Buyers are taking advantage. Now is a great time for people to put their homes on the market and maybe get something else that they've had their eye on, or it's a great time to refinance your home. I'm a big proponent of not selling property, actually, which is not a great position to be as a real estate agent, because obviously I want to sell property. That's how I make my living. But however, I've noticed over the years that whenever people sell their property, especially if it's their first property that they purchased like many years ago and they're looking to upgrade, I try to encourage them to hold on to that property and kind of turn it into an income producing property, rent it out, find a tenant, only because that first property you purchase is usually something that's very affordable and has increased in value at some point. Of course, every situation is different. Not everybody's property increases in value, but uh, usually that first home that you purchase can be used as a great income producing asset and something to fall back on or something to build upon, right? So, but if the time does come and we take a look at the situation and you're looking to sell, then you could use these steps that I put into place. Let's say, is now the right time? Listing your home, preparing your home, putting your home on the market, choosing an offer. When you're under contract, home inspection, appraisal, buyer's financing, and closing day. So we're going to go through these steps in detail so that I could give you some information on what to look forward to when you're about to sell your home. Now is not the right time. Everybody sells their home for some specific reason, right? Could be upsizing, which means that you've been in the property for a while and now it's too small, right? You need more space. Maybe your family has grown and the home that you're in at the moment, you just don't have enough room. So you're looking to sell your current home and buy something bigger. That's probably one of the most reasons people sell their existing homes to get into something bigger. Also, there's downsizing, right? Maybe you're an empty nester. The home that you have currently is way too big for you to manage. The repairs, the upkeep, the bills are a little high or a lot high, and you're trying to downsize that a bit. So you want to sell your current big home and get into something a little bit more manageable. Also relocating, right? People move around a lot, especially with their jobs and stuff like that. So you may want to put your house on the market, sell it, and relocate to the different city, different state, different country, whatever the case may be. Liquidating. Maybe you have a few properties and you want to liquidate, right? You need some cash out of it. There's a couple of ways you could go around that. Like you can refinance, do like a cash out refinance if you have equity in your properties. But if you just want to completely get out of that property, you know, put it on the market, cash out. There's a lot of different reasons. I know people who've sold properties because their kids are going to college, they need some cash to pay that tuition, or they need cash for whatever type of issues or opportunities may come their way that they need cash. They put one of their properties, one or two of their properties on the market, and they cash out. And also, unfortunately, sometimes there's family issues, you know, divorce, death in the family, like a death of one of the major income earners. Now you can't afford to keep the property. There's a number of different issues that could come across, health issues that would force you to put the house on the market. So all of these different issues, I've helped people sell their properties. So we're just going to go into what that process looks like. Now, listing your home. Listing your home is pretty much putting your home on the market, right? First thing you pretty much want to do, obviously, a lot of people do their research before they find an agent. Like they maybe go on Zillow or some other type of platform, internet platform, to find out like what their house is worth, like the Zestimate. So that's always you know, a good place to start, but that's not the end all be all. Just because Zillow says your house is worth this much doesn't mean that's necessarily what it's going to sell for. So there's a process at that. But you definitely want to find a real estate agent to put it on the market. I know there are a lot of people who try to do the for sale by owner. You can go that route. You know, if you want to have to deal with agents, because a lot of agents are going to be bringing their clients over to your for sale by owner. But you know, having to deal with agents, there's a lot of pitfalls. Agents are professionals. You know, you want to be represented well with a big transaction like this. So I suggest as an agent that you find yourself a professional realtor to help you with that process. And what that agent is going to help you do is put together a marketing plan, right? So we have a system called the MLS, Multiple Listing Service, that we enter your property in and gives your property wide exposure to agents, just regular buyers, and they'll make sure that, you know, they know, we'll make sure that everyone knows that your house is available for sale. And also we put together a marketing strategy, right? It's not just about putting it in the system where everybody could see it. You want to put together open houses. You want to put together, you know, your brochures. You want to make sure that the house is well represented out in the market, so that when people come by your house, come into your house, that you know, everything is in place. So you know, definitely put together a marketing plan for you. Also, the agent is going to give you what's called a good faith estimate. Pretty much an estimate of what your property is potentially going to bring you. Like once after your closing costs are paid, after commissions are paid, after all different itemized expenses that's going to be incurred at the sale of your home, what that bottom line is going to look like. Now, of course, it's a good faith estimate. It's not going to be, we try to get that estimate as close as possible, maybe to like the nearest, you know, $3,000-4,000. But, you know, it all depends. It depends on what the house ultimately sells for. We could pretty much get an idea of taxes, commissions and stuff like that, but that all depends on that actual sales price. So good faith estimate gives you a good idea of what you're going to be walking away with once the house actually sells. Pricing your home is a science, right? It's not necessarily what you want to price your house for. You have to ultimately, the seller, the owner of the property, sets the price. The real estate agent does not set the price, but we're there to guide you and give you the necessary information so that you can come up with that sales price, right? So of course we do a CMA, comparative market analysis. Some buyers even sellers go as far as to purchase an appraisal, right? So that they can find out their value of the property. So pricing, you definitely want to get the CMA is, you take all of the homes that sold recently in your neighborhood. If there's not a whole lot of homes that sold in your neighborhood recently, we may expand that search. Usually we go back 3 months. If there's not enough data in the past 3 months, we go back 6 months to try to find that value of your property. So pricing is definitely an important part of the process. Inclusion, exclusion, that's pretty much a checklist that shows what is going to be left in the property and what's going to be taken out of the property, so that there's no confusion when buyers come into the property. Sometimes they expect that the refrigerator is going to be there, the stove is going to be there, the window treatments and stuff like that. So definitely want to write down, well, there's actually a list. You just want to check off what you're going to be taking, what's going to be left in the property, and what you're going to be taking, so that at the end of the day, that everybody is on the same page. And then the listing agreement. The listing agreement is the contract between the seller of the property and the brokerage company that's representing your property on the market. So it gives, the terms of the agreement, the expiration date of the agreement, the price, sales price that we're going to be offering the property at, and then a whole bunch of different responsibilities of the broker and also the seller. So the agent will be going over all of that information with you prior to putting your house on the market. It's very important. Communication is very important from the beginning. Pretty much laying out the plan of how everything is going to work prior to putting the house on the market. Now, preparing your home. So even after you meet with the agent, you're going to put together the plan, right? So that doesn't necessarily mean it depends. Each situation is different, but your home doesn't necessarily go on the market the very next day. An agent will take a tour of your home and give you a few suggestions of some things that he would feel as a professional would help make your property more marketable. So one of the things I always try to do with my sellers is we want to address a few issues in the property that may hold it back or may give some buyers pause about making an offer. So of course, minor issues are very important to take care of. Things like a broken light switch or a missing outlet cover, stuff like that. Definitely want to take care of those little minor things, because what that shows the buyer is that if you're not taking care of these little minor things, then what are the major things that you're not taking care of, right? So the things that's obvious to the eye, you want to, before anybody steps foot in your property, you want to make sure that all that stuff is covered, right? And also the major issues, you're talking about plumbing, electrical, maybe you have an old roof or something like that. You want to try to take care of those issues, right? Especially not necessarily an old roof, but a leaking roof, right? Something that's an active issue. You can have an old roof, but as long as it's, stable, you don't have any leaking issues, that's fine, right? It's an old roof. You just have to disclose the age of the roof. But as long as it's doing its job, then it's not a problem. But if you do have some type of major issues, then you want to have that addressed, right? Because the major issue that's for you is going to be a major issue for whoever purchases your property, and you have to disclose that, right? You can't sell a house with a major issue without disclosing that to the buyer, because you could get in trouble down the road. But the thing is, buyers don't necessarily want to purchase a house where they have to take on that huge responsibility, unless it's unless a second investor who's looking to flip your property. But then they're going to lowball you, right? They say, oh, you have this issue, that issue, but I'm going to offer you $15,000-$20,000 less, because now I have to take that on. So you definitely want to try to take care of as many issues in the property as possible. Decluttering is very important as well. You don't want to have stuff all over the place, because what that's going to do is give the buyer the impression that the house is not big enough. You still have all this stuff in your house and you have no place to put it. So that's going to project on the buyer that, man, I'm going to have clutter in this house as well, because there's not enough space in here. So what you want to do prior to putting your house on the market is trying to clear out toys, clothes, shoes, any type of objects in your house that make it appear like it's, cluttered. I can't think of a better word than that. So, and also you don't want to move your clutter or things in your home to another room. Really what you want to do is get rid of that stuff, that extra stuff, right? So call up the Salvation Army, put up a whole bunch of things in there. If there's things that you haven't used in years, that you can't foresee yourself getting, don't be don't be a hoarder, right? Get rid of that stuff. You're trying to sell the house, you're trying to move on to something else, something bigger and better. So you want to get rid of all of that stuff, so that you don't have it in the garage, so you don't have it in the basement, you don't have it in the attic, right? You actually want to go through as many things as possible and get rid of it. And then just have your house very kind of open, so that it appears that it has enough room for all of your current belongings. Now, paint and floors. Now, I say this to all of my clients, like paint can do wonders for your property, right? I mean, talking about the least expensive thing that you can do, which will add value to your property, is painting, right? Painting the whole house, inside or outside if it needs it as well. So painting is something that it's inexpensive to do, especially if you're doing it yourself, but it's something that buyers do not necessarily like to do, right? Unless they have some type of, if they want some not weird colors, but different type of colors like purple or red or something like that they want to do themselves, that's fine. But as long as your house is painted in a neutral tone, then it gives that property, a nice bright feel to it, and a nice clean feel to it. If a buyer walks in and the walls are dirty, there's fingerprints everywhere, and there's grease all over the walls in the kitchen and stuff like that, it's not a good look, right? So you want to definitely clean off the walls, repaint them, and it'll do wonders for your property. Same thing with the floors. If you're able to, put down some nice new floors, or at least the minimum, get them professionally cleaned. If you have carpets, stuff like that, dirty carpets is not a good look, for a buyer coming in looking to purchase your property. Adding value. Now, I know a lot of people may have some extra disposable, well, not income, but like some money tucked away. It's like, you know what? The house as it is right now is $300,000, but I want to sell for $400,000. So I'm going to add new windows. I'm going to add a new roof. I'm going to add this, that, a new deck. I would not suggest to do that, right? There's only a few things that could really add value to your property. And most of them is not cosmetic. Stuff like Replacing an old HVAC system can add a little bit of some value to your property. Um, your roof, you know, if you have a very old roof, you could replace with a new roof. That'll add some value to your property. And also, if you want to do something cosmetic, I would limit it to the kitchen and the bathrooms, right? If you want to upgrade some countertops, some floors, some appliances, that's great. Don't go too overboard though with the, because it's very difficult to get that return on your investment, right? If you go too overboard, like if all the houses in your neighborhood are selling for $300,000, your house is more than likely not going to sell for $400,000 because you have a great new kitchen, or if you have, you know, a refrigerator with a TV in it. It's not going to raise your value that much higher, you know, to the point where it's like, oh, I'm going to sell my house for $100,000 more than my neighbor. Pretty much you have to keep your house close to like what the neighborhood has been selling at, right? So there are some that, you know, are outliers where there's that mansion on the block, but really the mansion on the block that's, you know, somebody's bought for $600,000, but the rest of the neighborhood is 350,000, then really that mansion is the one that's going to be struggling to sell for double the price, not necessarily the 300, 350. So the 300, 350s are actually, the mansion is going to be pulled in that direction more than the neighborhood being pulled towards the mansion's direction, if that makes sense. So definitely don't go overboard with trying to add value to the property. Staging. Now, this is for people who may not be living in the property at the time, and they have, maybe it was a rental, maybe it was an investment property, and right now it's ready to be sold, put on the market, it's vacant. I would suggest not selling that property empty. What I mean by that is staging. Like if you have empty property, it's very difficult for some buyers to come in there with the right imagination to say, you know what, the space looks good. I want to to put my sofa there. I'm going to put my bedroom set here. A lot of buyers don't have that vision, right? And they need to have furniture in the property so that to stimulate their vision. That's why staging is so important. I think the numbers are ridiculous. Like 73% of properties sell once they're staged, like within the first 30 days or something like that. So if, staging is not cheap, right? But it works. It works wonders. You'll be very surprised. I've been surprised sometimes. That's why when you walk into a new home development, a new builder development, they don't have you walking through an empty home. They have you walking through a professionally staged home so that you can visualize what your stuff is going to look like in there. So staging is definitely important. If you have an empty house right now, I will consider staging it. It'll help you get the most value, sell for the highest price, and sell quickly as well. Curb appeal is also important. There's been many times where I've been with buyers and the outside of the property, we roll up to a property and the outside, the grass is uncut, overgrown weeds and stuff like that. Doesn't look good, doesn't look appealing to the eye. And the buyer would be like, nope, let's go to the next one. Because the outer appearance is very important, right? The inside could look great, but if the outer appearance is not inviting, then a lot of buyers would just take that as, you know what, the seller is not really interested in, selling this property if the appearance looks like this from the outside. Curb appeal is very important, right? So you want to make sure that the front of the home is well manicured, lawn, shrubs, trees, whatever. You don't want to have stuff overgrown all over the place. Make sure you get your landscaper, come out, cut up the shrubs, make sure the grass is kept cut. If the house needs some paint, get the house painted. All of this stuff is going to You're going to be able to get your return on investment on keeping your house well manicured and looking great from the curb. Now, you went through everything, you decluttered the home, you painted, did a few, repairs and stuff like that. Now your house is ready to be put on the market. Now here's where your real estate agent really gets to work. So you put in that preliminary work of getting the house prepared. Now it's really on your agent to start marketing your property, showing your property, and making sure that we get some offers in. So first thing you want to do with your agent is create a viewing schedule. So if you're living at your home, at the home where you're currently trying to sell, it's very important to create a viewing schedule. A viewing schedule means that, okay, my family is usually eating dinner around this time, so I don't necessarily want to show the house during this time, but we could show during this time, right? So that buyers aren't, always trying to make a request to show your house during dinner time or during the time when the house was full, right? But you have to keep in mind that a lot of the buyers, they work during the day and are unable to go see your property like between 9 to 5. So there's a lot of times where buyers, the only time they have to come look at your property is like 6 to 8, or during the time when everybody is home. So what you want to do is you want to create at least some type of notice, some lead time, so that it's like, okay, I have a buyer coming in at 6 p.m. So give me at least 2 hours notice so that I could get everything together and get everybody out so that the buyer could come in. And I also would suggest that if you're still living at the property with yourself or with your family, that when a buyer comes in to view it with their agent, don't be at the property, right? Try to, go outside. I've even had sellers like, look, just go stay in the car while, if you don't have anywhere to go, especially nowadays, right? Just go in the car, let the buyer walk through for, 15, 20 minutes. And then, once they leave, then you can go back. Because it's very difficult for a buyer to be, completely honest and view the property without any type of pressure with the owner of the property hovering around, right? Last thing you want to do is follow the buyer from room to room, and saying, oh yeah, this is the living room, blah, 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 blah. No, let the agent do their job, right? And I would prefer or suggest that the seller stays outside of the home while the buyer is touring. Also a lockbox. Definitely want to have a lockbox access for the real estate agent. I know some buyers, not all buyers. Most buyers are okay with the lockbox, especially the lockboxes we have these days, the electronic lockboxes. A real estate agent is only like a registered real estate agent could have access to that electronic lockbox. And as soon as the agent puts their information in, the time that they open the box, all of that real estate agent's information, their name, their broker, how long they've been in the business, all types of stuff pops up and goes into the system. So who's going into the property or who's accessing that lockbox and even the time that they leave. So definitely want to have that lockbox is the best access to show your property. Yard signs. You want to have a for sale sign, right? I know there are some people out there that's like, well, I don't want the neighbors to know that I'm selling my house or something like that. But a lot of my buyers, they go driving around neighborhoods all the time, right? So if they're seeing a yard sign that, oh, I've been waiting for a house to pop up in this neighborhood, they're going to call me right away. They're like, hey, Frantz, check out this house. I just saw a sign on it. It's a huge marketing tool, right, for your property. So I will always suggest that someone puts a yard sign out, a for sale sign on their property. Open houses. Open houses are important as well, right? You want to have at least 2 open houses in the first 30 days of your house being on the market, right? It's great for the neighborhood, agents like to do it because it introduces them to different buyers in the neighborhood. but also open houses are widely marketed, right? In the newspapers, online, internet, everywhere. There's open house listings, and your house is on there, and it happens to be in a neighborhood where few people are looking, then people would, come make sure that they're at that open house, right? And it's also best, especially if you're living at the property. So people, they'll probably wait to, instead of disturbing you during the week, when they know you're probably home, they'll be like, okay, we'll just wait for the open house. And then we'll go check out that property at that point. In fact, there are some owners who prefer to their first showing be that open house, right? So that they could get the majority of the people in around the same window. Usually open houses are Saturday and Sunday in the afternoon, like between 12 and 4 or 1 and 5, something like that. So it's a great tool to help sell your house. So definitely open houses. And then price adjustments. So let's just say a house has been on the market for a little bit longer than you probably thought, and you're not getting the same type of activity that you imagined. So it could be a couple of things. It could be a number of things. The first thing that we always look at is price, making sure the property is not overpriced, right? Because that could definitely keep people away. If all the houses on the block are selling for $300,000 and yours is $400,000, people are going to be like, some people are going to be like, well, I wonder why this house is $400,000. Let's go take a look at it and see, if it's that much better than the other houses in the area. But most of the time, I'm not going to pay $400,000 for a house in that area, because if you purchase a house for $400,000 in that area, where all the other houses are $300,000, that's going to affect your value, right? So you want to make sure that the house is priced correctly, right? So you may have to do some price adjustments if you feel that it is overpriced, right? So definitely get with your real estate agent, and it could be anything else too. It could be some other things, but the first thing we always look at is price. Now, choosing an offer. We did our open houses. We adjusted the prices if we had to. Sometimes you got to adjust the price up higher, right? So if you're getting tons and tons of interest, and you're like, man, maybe we, price the house too low. But the market will always correct itself. Like if you're getting multiple offers, then people are going to be bidding up higher on your property. So dealing with choosing an offer, right? Sometimes you have lowball offers as well. It happens, right? There's always people out there like, okay, well, let me try it, right? The house is on the market for $300,000. Let me try to offer $250,000, right? I mean, sometimes it depends on you how you want to handle stuff like that, right? Especially if it's in the early on, right? You just put the house on the market, first week you get an offer $20,000 less than what we're asking. Different sellers deal with it different ways. Some sellers reject it outright. They're like, I'm not accepting a $20,000 offer, $20,000 less than what I'm asking. And some people want to counteroffer, right? So, we'll deal with lowballs accordingly. It all depends, right? If it's been 3-4 months down the road, we haven't received any offer, and then we get an offer in that's $20,000 less than what you're asking, you may not want to reject it right away. You may want to negotiate with that offer. But if it's early on, then we're not and if you're not in a rush to get the house sold, then we could deal with it in different ways. Now, multiple offers. So let's just say your house is in a highly desirable neighborhood. The house is in great condition, and it's appealing to a lot of buyers. And you may get multiple offers. I've had properties that I've listed that I've had over 10 offers, right? And I'm sure that there've been other properties that have probably dozens of offers, right? So it's just a process of laying out all the offers and figuring out which one is going to be the best offer for you, right? There's a lot of different factors that go into choosing an offer, especially if you have multiple offers. I mean, price is definitely one, but also terms are important. You have a house on the market for 300,000, you get an offer for 300,000, but they may not be able to close for 90 days or 120 days or something like that, right? That may not work for you. Or you may have an offer that comes in that's slightly lower, let's say 295,000, but they could settle in 3 weeks, right? That might be a little bit more desirable. So it's just a matter of making a pros and cons list of all the offers that come in and choosing the best one. Now, every offer that comes in must have a pre-approval letter attached to it, right? You don't want to get into a contract with somebody whose financing is pretty shaky, right? Every offer that comes in should have a very strong pre-approval letter. So if I'm your agent and we get in an offer, first thing I'm going to look at, you're going to look at the offer price and the terms and stuff like that, but then I'm going to go straight and look at the pre-approval letter. And the pre-approval letter is going to let me know which bank is lending this buyer money, and then it's going to have that contact, like the loan officer who's working with that buyer. So I'm going to contact that loan officer and ask them some questions like, okay, well, have you looked at their credit? Have you looked at their income? Have you did this, that, and the other? Are they a strong buyer in your opinion? Blah, blah, how long you've been working with them, blah, blah, blah. So I'm going to start, pretty much asking them a whole bunch of different questions, making sure that this buyer is qualified or making sure the buyer is pre-approved for this loan, right? So that we're not going through this whole process and then down the line, we come into some type of financial issues. Things happen all the time, but the more you do your due diligence beforehand, then the less likely you have surprises at the end. Now, counter offers. Counter offers, that's, you get an offer and it's not exactly what we're looking for, but we haven't been receiving that many offers. So we say, okay, let's see if we could work with this person. So the house is on the market for 300,000. An offer comes in at 290, right? And it's not exactly, the best offer, but you're not getting a whole bunch of other offers. So it's like, let's see if we can work with this. What you'll do is you'll counter offer that offer. So they're offering 290 and they want to close in 60 days. Maybe we counter offer, all right, we'll meet you halfway, 295, but we'll close in 45 days, right? And then we'll sign that, we'll send it over to them. Just because we sign a counter offer doesn't necessarily mean that that's a contract, right? It doesn't become a contract until both seller and buyer agree on those terms, right? So if we send that to the buyer and they say, okay, we could do 295 in 45 days, then buyer signs off on it, boom, now you have a contract, right? So if an offer comes in that's not 100% what you're looking for, you can always counter offer that offer. You don't always have to reject it. So that's all part. Real estate is a negotiation, right? So you could negotiate terms. Just because somebody sends you something doesn't mean that they're not willing to negotiate. It's just sort of like a starting point, so that you guys can meet in the middle somewhere. Now, under contract, we received our offers, we went through all of them, and we chose one, and now we're under contract, right? So now what do we look forward to? First thing we want to do is we want to change the listing status in the system, right? So once you accept an offer, then now you're working exclusively with that one buyer, okay? So now we don't have other agents and buyers coming through to look at the property. Now the house is under contract and we're working with one party, so we kind of like close off everybody else for the time being until we get to sell. right? If something happens in the middle, down the road somewhere, and their offer falls, the contract falls apart, then we put it back in the system as active, and people start bringing their buyers back to, agents will start bringing their buyers back to the property. But what we'll do, we'll change, once we accept an offer, we change the status in the system to under contract. And that lets everybody know that we're working with one buyer. So no more showings. You definitely want to, just because you have a contract doesn't necessarily mean that now you're off the hook. The house is going to be sold in a few weeks. I don't have to pay the mortgage. I can start packing. I'm going to be up out of here. That's not necessarily the case all the time. Anything can happen, right? So you want to continue taking care of the house. You want to continue paying the mortgage, stuff like that, utilities, all that stuff, up until that house, is actually sold. You went to settlement and all that stuff. Because like I said, anything can happen. You don't want to make any major changes to the property unless you communicate that with the person who's purchasing their property. Like, oh yeah, I'm gonna change all the windows, I'm gonna change these doors, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. Unless you said that, mentioned that to the buyer, then I wouldn't suggest you do anything. Like, the buyer said that they're gonna purchase the property in this condition, then just leave it in the condition that the buyer wants it, right? I wouldn't go doing anything else to that property. And once you get under contract, one of the first things you want to do is you want to order the HOA packet. That's if you live in a homeowners association type neighborhood. There's a packet that you have, it's called a resale package that the HOA offers. And what that does is it gives a snapshot of your status with the homeowners association. So if you owe HOA money, or if you have any HOA violations, all that stuff is going to come up once you're once you're in a contract to sell a property, because you can't sell the property with outstanding violations, right? And also, if you're behind on HOA, all that stuff has to be reconciled at settlement. So first thing you want to do is order that HOA packet so that we can figure out if you have any violations, if you have any, if you're in arrears or anything like that, so we can make sure all of that stuff is settled by the time we get to the settlement table. Now, home inspection. Home inspection is, there's going to be a bunch of different contingencies that come in a contract that the buyer is going to put in there. So we have to make sure that we're prepared for that. Of course, every situation is different. I mean, if it's a very hot property, right, which means that a lot of people are after your property, sometimes the best offer to accept is the one that has the least amount of contingencies, right? So, and probably 90% of offers that's going to come in are going to have some type of contingencies, especially if there's financing in place. So the first real contingency that we're going to have to face is the home inspection. So a buyer is going to come in, they're going to write an offer. They say, okay, I'm going to offer you full price for your property, but I want to make sure that the house is in good condition. So they're going to hire a home inspector to come in and go throughout the property and give them a report. Usually that home inspection contingency, I suggest, is no more than 10 days. Usually I like to have a home inspection within 7 days. So that means we get into a contract on Monday. So you need to have your home inspector there, by Wednesday or Thursday, and then so that you can have enough time to get your report, submit the report of whatever issues the home inspector finds in your home. Could be electrical, could be mechanical, could be leaks, could be whatever the home inspector finds. Put it in a report, get it over to us, and then so that we can start negotiating those terms of the home inspection, the repairs, and all that stuff, right? So they would put it in a home inspection addendum, send it to us. We'll go over that addendum, and we have to figure out if we're going to make those repairs that the home inspector suggested that the buyer wants to have done, or you're going to give a credit to that buyer, which means that, you know what, I don't want to be responsible for these repairs. So I'm just going to offer, $500 or $1,000, depending on what the actual issue is. Then you can offer a credit instead of hiring a contractor to go address those issues. Most of the time, I like to give a credit if possible. The seller, I suggest the seller to give a credit if possible, because you don't want to be in a position where you hire somebody to come fix the problem. It's fixed temporarily, we get the settlement, and then down the road, the same issue arises. And then the buyer calls us up. It's like, hey, this thing is broken again. You're responsible for it. I'd rather just give a credit and let the buyer take care of it, right, if possible. So, they hire their own contractor, all that stuff, and then there's no recourse for the buyer. Also, when you're dealing with repairs, I always suggest that you have a licensed repair company come in to do the repairs, as opposed to like a handyman, maybe an unlicensed handyman. Doesn't matter if that's the best contractor in town. If he's not licensed, it could be a difficult sell, right, to someone who's purchasing the property. Because again, there's no recourse. Like if you have somebody coming in to fix the property, and they're fixing a power socket, a power outlet, and something goes wrong, whole place, the electrical affects the electrical in the whole house. That person doesn't have license, he doesn't have insurance, all that falls on you. So you want to make sure you're dealing with a professional, licensed, and insured company to come and do repairs, especially when you're putting your house on the market, when you're under a contract, right? Because you don't want anything to go wrong. So I always suggest a professional, licensed contractor to do work in the house while you're under contract. And also the walkthrough. So now you have up until settlement to get all of the repairs on the home inspection addendum complete. Okay, so you want to maybe have those repairs complete no less than 3 days prior to your actual settlement date. Okay, so if you're settling on August 30th, you want to have all those repairs complete by August 27th, the latest, right? Because the buyer is going to be conducting a walkthrough in the property prior to settlement to make sure that all the repairs that's on that list are complete. And they're going to go back through the property and with their list and go through all of the different items that they wanted fixed on their home inspection addendum. I've seen people, buyers, walk through the day of settlement, like that morning prior to going to the settlement office. They go to the house and make sure that everything is complete. So you want to make sure at least 3 days. I've had sellers that complete everything in that first week. As soon as they get the addendum and they say they're going to do it, they go ahead and get it done. So that's what I suggest, but no later than 3 days prior to settlement. I've seen, stuff like this hold up deals, and even, deals have fell through because of the final walkthrough, because the seller didn't get those repairs done right away. And then there's an issue came up, and, they thought it was something small and it ended up being something big. And then it took a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get it done. So as soon as we get that list, let's make sure we address it so it doesn't hold us up. Now, another contingency is the appraisal. Okay, the appraisal is lender required. So if that buyer is purchasing your property with a loan from a bank, then that bank is requiring that appraisal, right? Because they want to know what the value of that property is that they're lending the buyer money for. So usually an appraiser comes out after the home inspection. I like to get that home inspection done first so that we can make sure that there's no issues, that's going to collapse the deal, because an appraisal is paid outside of closing as well, right, on the buyer's side. the buyer is responsible for paying an appraiser like $400 to $500, and they come out, they take pictures, measurements of the property, they will put it in a report, send it back to the bank, say, okay, yeah, appraiser, the market value is $300,000, so that's fine. Sometimes you get a low appraisal, okay? In that case, that affects you, the seller, at that point. So if you're selling the property for $300,000, the appraisal comes back at $290,000, that could be a major issue. Because what that means is the bank is not going to lend $300,000 on a property that's worth $290,000, and that $10,000 difference falls on the buyer. And sometimes, most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, the buyer's not going to have that $10,000 to make up the difference. And even if they did have that $10,000 to make up the difference, they don't want to pay that $10,000 because the property is not worth what you agreed the property, what you're selling the property for. So now that falls back on you, the seller, and you have to make that decision ultimately it's your decision am I going to lower the price to the appraised value? Now, depending on the situation, every situation is different. I always suggest to, if possible, to lower that price. And the reason why is because, if you decide not to, then we get out of that contract, right? The buyer gets their deposit back. Now you have to go look for another buyer. And then let's say we find another buyer to purchase the property for $300,000. Now that buyer is going to need an appraisal. Now that appraiser could come back with the same information, saying that the house is worth $290,000. So, and then we right back to square one. So at that point, I would say, and I've seen that happen before. In some cases, I've seen it come back, a second appraisal come back lower than the first one. So there's different ways. Sometimes appraisers would give us a heads up, like, hey, listen, the comps are not supporting your sales price. If you have any other comps, they'll ask you how you came up with that $300,000. Maybe there's some upgrades that they missed. Maybe there's some comps that they missed. And as an agent, I will send as much information to that appraiser so that we can make value. But if it still comes back low, then we have a decision to make, right? Every situation is different. We just have to really cross that bridge once we get to it. But that's why it's very important to price the house accordingly from the beginning, right? You don't want to overprice the property because you want to make a little bit more money, because that house still has to appraise, right, to support how much we offered the house for in the first place. So pricing the property right from the beginning is very important. Now, the next contingency is buyer financing. Okay, so buyer has to make sure that their loan is they're going to receive a commitment from the bank for the loan that they applied for. And usually that comes like between 3 and 4 weeks of us getting into contract, because the bank needs to collect information, not just from the buyer, but they need the sales contract, they need the appraisal from us, they need like termite inspections and stuff like that as part of their package for the underwriter to approve the loan. So if everything goes well, usually like about 3 weeks in, the bank would give the buyer their loan commitment. So in the beginning, you have a pre-approval letter, which means that, okay, they reviewed and verified the buyer's income, credit, and reserves, stuff like that. So based on that information, we could approve them for this amount of money. And then the loan commitment doesn't come until you have stuff like the appraisal in place that supports the value of the property that they're purchasing and other information. So usually that comes in within 20 to 25 days. But it's still a contingency, right? Which means that if they don't receive that within that time, then they can still, they could pretty much back out of the contract if they feel like they're not going to get that loan. They can't just make the decision on their own saying that I'm backing out the contract, but if they don't receive that loan commitment, or if they're rejected for that loan, then they will be able to back out of the contract with their deposit and everything. So that's why, again, it's important for, like when I said, to do your due diligence as an agent, to call that loan officer, call that bank who gave the pre-approval letter, and ask questions about the strength of that buyer. Because you don't want to get 3 weeks into a contract and then find out that that buyer, did not get that loan commitment because of so-and-so. So it does happen on occasions, but if you do your due diligence as an agent, to make sure that that buyer's bank and pre-approval letter is strong, then you could avoid, a lot of these different issues that could come up 3-4 weeks into a contract. So getting that loan commitment, once the buyer gets that loan commitment, then that's pretty much money, and you're good to go after that. Now, closing day, buyer got their loan commitment, all the contingencies are satisfied, and now you're on your way to settlement. Now, what you want to make sure is that the house is empty, all of your belongings are out. I really like to get my sellers to not have any type of post-settlement arrangements. Okay, after settlement, I have a whole bunch of stuff in the garage, but after settlement, I got the truck, and I'm gonna go over there and I would like everything to be out of the property prior to settlement day, right? So that once we get to the settlement table, you hand over the keys, and then that's it, right? Enjoy your house. I'll take the check, good luck. So after that point, I don't want the seller to have any other type of connections with the property or arrangements like post-settlement with the buyer. The house, you want to leave it broomed clean. So that means that you don't necessarily have to go through the house, and start, bleaching stuff and stuff like that. You just want to make sure that the house is cleared of all types of debris and broomed clean. That's what it says in the contract, right? You're free to hire a cleaning company to go throughout the house and make sure that it's nice and sparkly and clean for the new buyer. That's fantastic. That's great. But the contract states that it just needs to be broomed clean and free of any debris. Of course, all the repairs must be complete by settlement day. We already went over that. I said, I would suggest 3 days prior to settlement that you have all of the repairs on that inspection addendum complete, so that there's no issues that will hold up settlement. You want to make sure all the utilities are switched. You want to make sure you call up the gas company, electric company, water companies, and say, okay, I need not the water company, the settlement company does that. But as far as the gas and electric, maybe cable, stuff like that, you want to make sure all of that stuff is switched out of your name, maybe the day after settlement. You don't want to have stuff turned off the day of settlement, right? So you want to give the buyer the opportunity to have everything switched in their name, so that you don't have utilities that are shut off. Now the buyer has to, go through a process of turning the utilities on before they can move in. So just make sure you have all the utilities set to be switched out of your name the day after settlement, so that it could be a nice smooth transition for the buyer. You want to let the settlement company know how you want your funds from settlement. I've seen people take checks. The easiest way is probably a wire, which would, if you settle in the morning, most of the time that wire hits your account, that afternoon, or if you settle in the afternoon, usually hits the next business day. So that's your choice. You could arrange that with the settlement agent. And then after that, you just hand over the keys, right? And that's pretty much it. And, you got your house sold, you got your check, and now you're ready for the next bigger and better thing. And that's pretty much it, right? Well, each situation is different, but it's a pretty smooth process, especially when you're dealing with a real estate professional. Like I've said, I've been in this business for 20 years. I've seen it all. It's always good to have an experienced agent helping you with the transaction of this magnitude, because things do happen. Things can happen. And the more experienced person that you have working with you, and the more you can, when those situations arise, you'll be able to navigate through them successfully. So I'd love to help you with your transaction. I'm in the DC, Maryland market, but also anywhere in the country. If you have any type of issues, or if you're looking to put your house on the market, sell your house, you need some tips, you need some advice. I also have a large network of real estate agents all over the country in many different states. So I could also help you find somebody that can help you with your home sale in your state if you're not in the DC and Maryland area. So good luck with everything. Stay safe out there, and I hope to talk to you guys soon. All right. Have a great one.